Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome here to our EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion meeting. I'm Chris Clegg, for those who do not know me, and I will be helping to facilitate this meeting today. As you all know, Dr. Smith has retired, so while we look for the next Chief Equity Officer, I'll be here helping and facilitating and getting us started. We're just going to start. Ms. Walker, you want to go ahead and do the welcome for us?
Sure. First of all, thank you everyone for coming and keep coming back to do this most important work. I feel like we have a lot to work on, but we are making some strides. I'm excited to hear from the students today, and I just came from the county address. I guess it's a yearly address, and they talked a lot about the importance of equity work. And I think that what we do here is extremely important, and we want to keep on doing it. And we've got a lot to get to on the agenda, so I'll be quiet. I guess take it away, Chris.
All right. So first thing on our agenda, we have the review of our short-term goals and strategies. And for those who are not aware, I just want to remind you guys that the strategic plan was passed by the board. So we also have that new strategic plan with their 6 goals, and equity, diversity, and inclusion is one of those goals in the strategic plan that will lead us from now until 2027. So if you have not had a chance to look over that strategic plan, I highly encourage you to do so. It can be found on the district's website. See, under the About Us, and then you have strategic plan there, and it'll have the full PDF of the strategic plan. So just looking at where we are in relation to our short-term and long-term goals, and thank you guys for sending in those updates from that last email that we got from Dr. Smith. And just looking at goal 1, we have comparable high academic achievement and other student outcomes. And remind me, goal 1, Kirsten, you want to talk on that one or share anything?
Well, let's have Kamika kick us off because she was a real conceptual leader for this.
Okay.
I'll back up.
All right, so goal 1, I think it came from based on our conversations that we were having within the subgroup, and then it was a correlation between goal 1 and goal 5. So after a while, it came together. So one of the things is, just from the outside looking in and a community member and just someone that comes in here, it's a lot of deficit mindsets that sometimes we think that Title I or a certain group has marginalized groups. When within every school you have subgroups that are marginalized. And so whether you have a high majority population within your school with affluent students, you still have a marginalized group within that school. And so this goal was created to address the needs of every school and not to pinpoint schools that you think have a marginalized group. And so this is why the goal is stated as such. New Hanover County School principals will report annually to the district stakeholders a decrease in student academic achievement gaps between marginalized subgroups and high performance subgroups. Now, in the beginning, I put statistically significant because I didn't want to put a number to it. But then we came up as a group 10%. This allows each school to target the needs within that school and not only collaborate and work with those students, but work with that parent, work with those community members in order to support that group. And then that way, it is a system that is being established within that school, and then they can report what the outcome is, what they're doing within that school with that subgroup to school board, to the superintendent, to various other entities. And it's not like you have one school with all these needs and then you have another school that doesn't, because that's not truly the case. And I think that we need to get out of that mindset. And so that's why goal 1, when you start looking at higher academic achievement and student outcomes, that's why it's worded that way.
And then I just wanted to piggyback off of that I remember when Dr. Fowles came almost 2 years ago, he had 3 main points that he was looking at. He wanted a 99% graduation rate. He wanted all students reading on grade level 90% of students reading on grade level by the third grade, and then his third one was that increase of a 10% jump within all of our subgroups. So as we have superintendent and instruction backing on that, we'll be able to look and get that data and see that data as testing develops over the next coming years. And on each district webpage, just for keeping up and maintaining that accountability piece that we will be looking at when we get to goal 6, I'm gonna pull it up, and each school should now, let me go to schools and just pick out one of the elementary ones. Go to Castle Hayne, and they'll all have their annual accountability report on that, and that will show you and give you a look at kind of where those schools and where different subgroups are right now. So when we're talking about moving those 10%, you'll see different subgroups here, and that's what we're looking at, moving those markers right there. So as we're looking at keeping that accountability level and making sure we're growing where we need to be growing, and we see that 10% increase at each schools, we will have this information that's already is external facing on websites for all of us to kind of keep up and see and be able to make sure that level of accountability is held. All right, so now thank you, Kamika and Kirsten, for goal 1. Goal 2, equitable access and inclusion. Is anyone in here who's on goal 2?
Casey and I, do you want me to?
It's all you.
I'll start and you fill in, please. So we had 3 short-term goals for goal 2. Goal 2 is equitable access and inclusion. And the first one is to increase access to traditional high school specialty programs by 10% during the next year. And so you have kind of some of our strategies on how to get that increase. The goal 2 was increase EC students' access to general education by 10%. We have a pretty low least restrictive environment ratio for New Hanover County schools compared to the North Carolina target. So this wouldn't get us all the way there, but it would get us very significantly closer. And then goal 3 is increase enrollment in heritage language courses by 5% for next year.
And just additional information with that. So the Communication and Outreach Division, we work with Sarah Gubitz, who is our Director of Online Learning, and she also works with the specialty programs and signature programs and specialty high schools. So our division worked with her this year to create promo videos and marketing videos that were targeted for both our English-speaking families as well as our Spanish-speaking families. So we're really interested to see when those enrollment numbers come out next month, and hopefully we have something then to report back to group to see what those numbers look like from this past school year to what they're looking like into the next school year, and if we need to maybe ramp up our marketing and promotional materials through any particular demographics. It'll give us a base point, a baseline, and where we are right now and where we'll need to hit for the next school year.
I think, Carlos, I think that we should go back and meet with the current AIG lead person because she has very amazing ideas and she helped me a lot. I mean, I got to know a little bit about that for a bad reason, but it ended up being a good thing because I had to be involved in the selection process, the creation of the match team and the criteria for AIG. And we had something that I didn't know existed, that is counting the 10%, the top 10% of our school, not the top 10% from the county or the top 10%, and scores is from our school, from each subgroup, which is amazing. That is a big marker right there that we can use, and we just need and say, are you sure? And yeah, it's been there, and say, I don't know if people know about it. So that was a game changer for our population because we enroll more students into the AIG program on 3rd grade, and we could reevaluate some 4th and 5th graders because of that criteria. But it's a matter of, using the data, creating a protocol that make it clear for all AIGs, because then we go mindset. How are we gonna, what idea I have about what AIG is and what idea it has to be, and how are we gonna give opportunities to all these families and students that are smart in many different ways. So that I think a meeting with her will be definitely important.
I agree. So I will reach out to her tomorrow and see it possibly get, I don't know when our when we're meeting in June, if we're meeting in June, but we'll look at whenever our next meeting is, meeting with her, or even just having her meet with the equity work group and then divulge, and then the work group can come back to EDI and share that information. But definitely that is a good point. Thank you. All right, so moving on to goal number 3, equitable treatment.
I am the current head, in case Karen wants to take over from me. I had a couple, well, for months and months now, we've had a couple of topics on there, reducing the suspensions, or, for the younger kids, and then also the seclusion rooms. We have managed, through the good work of the district and our student support staff, they implemented the professional leadership communities with, I think, 11 schools. And it really did help reduce the number of suspensions and kind of showed us what we could do. And so the board decided to go ahead and, eliminate suspensions for children under 8 years old, or it was what, the wording, 77 through K through 3 or 2?
We didn't do the grades,
Yeah.
we did under the age.
Yeah, so so it went to policy, and policy worked out the wording in there. The exception is guns, violence, or drugs. So we managed to meet that goal, which we were very proud of. But we couldn't have done it, obviously, without the staff and, in the programs in there. So I know the discussion topic that's up now are the seclusion rooms. That's actually been a community kind of, thing that's come up. But we have, we are looking at that. Our student support staff is said that, we can meet these goals and we can really kind of look at it. We're going to have data presented tomorrow night as well, because it all starts with the data. You guys know that. And so we are working towards that. That's probably going to take a little while to do, but the intent is there, and the desire there is to really look at these, the seclusion rooms. I think Dr. Smith put the 95%. These, I think, are what are on the 95% staff and students. That is part of a strategic plan. Right, I think that was what we worked on together when we were doing the retreat on the strategic plan. And of course, there are worthy goals. We have to, I would say, and I put that in there, I believe the fall is probably about the time we might roll out a survey to get our initial survey out, and then we can redo the survey to find out where we are. But we have to have an initial survey done first. I think strategic plan, if I'm not mistaken, is a 5-year plan, but I'd like to see that improve every year. But we haven't built that out yet, so whenever our subcommittee meets again, we will definitely look at those too and figure out a plan for that.
And then going back to the strategic plan, this is what Ms. Walker was mentioning. So goal number 4, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Students and staff agree that their school work site is an inclusive, equitable, and diverse place where they have a strong sense of belonging and connectedness. And then the main outcome is by 2027, students and staff report in biannual surveys, 90% or higher agreement that their school work site is an inclusive place where they have a strong sense of belonging and connectedness. So again, by 2027, we want to hit, is it 90% or is it going to be 95%? 95%, but I agree, like Ms. Walker says, we want to see that increase over the next 5 years. We don't want to just say, oh, it's just at 80 right now, so we'll check again in 2027 to see if it's meant that 95. So let's working towards that annual increase with students and staff. Anything else, Ms. Walker?
I think that is all, unless anybody in the group wants to mention anything.
Is your group done? Because I want to go back to a conversation we had when we were talking about suspensions and removing or not removing, and what are the alternatives now for teachers and students and schools, and call it seclusion rooms, all these mechanisms that were in place that we don't agree are effective, and we can decide or remove them, but how are we going to support teachers now? How are we going to keep students in the classrooms and not sending them home early? Another way to call it with the same outcome. How are we going to help really, and that has to have really clear action steps in the support with the social emotional that is coming along with, all the things that we have in place need to have a streamline, a series of outcomes that are going to help truly reduce that suspension, because we are making an impact, not because we just don't report it on the numbers. So I think that's a serious conversation that needs to happen as next steps. Yes, the board policy is this one, so, but we are supporting, and we need to make a clear voice to teachers that we are not leaving you there, hanging to dry, because it's your problem now. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you can't suspend it, so
That's
how are we
definitely
gonna?
always been part of the conversation for sure, the support of staff. And, definitely let's have it and let's figure out ways that we can do that. And, I know it's not going to roll out till next school year, but that gives us a little bit of time to work on some, potential solutions that help.
Yeah, in the meantime, we need to have work groups, we need to go to the classes that are more impacted by those numbers before, and we all have ideas, how we gonna hear them, and many of them could be connected to initiatives that are already in place. It's just to give them the right shape and form, so when we have that in place, it really makes sense.
Yes.
Because right now, some schools are being penalized on these numbers. The numbers are too high, it's because we report what really happened.
Right.
Other schools are not reporting, or they don't say all the things, or they consider keeping data and updating all the truly informing what is happening. Others just wait until it's too bad, and so it's
Yeah.
different shades of the same color. So
I'd like to second that, because something I've noticed over the last few months, being a classroom teacher, as I walk around the school, I believe it's a very good thing that we reduce suspensions and do that, but then reducing suspension doesn't mean a loss of, that you're not losing learning time, because then you have the kids that are basically hip buddies with with someone that's not a classroom teacher, and they're basically spend the day just walking around the school, and because they can't be in the classroom, but then they can't be suspended. So I agree with Lena, we've got to figure out action steps, because that's ultimately, as a teacher, I want to keep every kid in my class, because I'm responsible for them educationally and making sure that they are being their best. So then I think it becomes still almost easier for teachers at some points to send those kids out, because they know that they're not being suspended, but also at the same time, these students are they're just walking around the school with an adult all day, or basically almost like a walking in school suspension is maybe the best way I can put it. I don't know another way to put it.
Well, yeah, no, that policy directly relates to out-of-school suspensions.
Right.
Yeah, but also, like
Just
Kamika
like
had brought up,
419.
it's a hard process, and we got to have the will to want to do it, and we have to put the intention into it, and there's definitely things that we can do, and,
And students can go home. So, for those major infractions.
Yes.
I'm not sitting here saying that, I don't know. It's just, as a teacher, it's some days, y'all know. But it is a process to go through. And it's been different things, and, and like I said, this is going into our 5th year. So it's still looking at it. And we have not put this policy in place, though. So there are times that students have been home. So has it been a decrease, or is it a lot? No. But students have been suspended.
So who is the administrator in New Hanover County Schools who would be responsible for launching the process that responds to the board policy? Because thanks to the board, congratulations to the board for passing that, right? You set the tone with policy. Who's going to set the procedures?
that's the thing. That's the conversation that needs to happen. Because right now everybody's talking. What are we gonna do now? And we don't have a process that says, okay, you know why we have this in place. Everybody supports the policy, but then what? What are we gonna do with the students that can't be in the classroom because they are too disruptive for the other students and it's not fair for them? We wanna provide a learning space that is different, that looks different, that is gonna give them what they need until they are regulated to be back and rejoin their peers. But how that looks like and how we gonna help them learn from that experience so they try not to do it again, or what is the next step on that? It's all restorative practice, and we want to have it, but we need to have the systems in place and start training people and start providing more spaces or more adults in the room with the training, not an assistant working with the child for the entire school all day because mama can pick it up or we can send it home. So
And it feels like a reward for some students, and I think
Yeah.
it becomes
They like that.
self-defeating.
Yeah, it can get to be self-perpetuating.
Yeah.
But I think that everything that the educator said, I think last year when we started talking about this, was very similar to like, okay, who's the trusted adult? Who's the person that can, kind of have that conversation and really kind of understand the individual needs, because it's always driven by an individual need, and how to get that person as close to the classroom as possible. Because right now it's like, okay, this person may have a trusted adult, but that trusted adult may not be in the classroom.
Right, that's what
Right.
the seek is, to get to that adult, right?
Right. So,
So trying to figure that out.
yeah.
I wonder, Caress, if somebody could ask, maybe you, or you could get the right person, to ask Dr. Faust, what is the plan to develop the procedures? And certainly there's a lot of wisdom here that I'm hearing. Will these folks be, tapped to kind of inform the plan? And when can he report back to us, or his designee report back to us on the plan and procedures that are unfolding? Is that a possibility?
So Tyler, you were part of the PLC for one of the schools, right? How did you feel like that? Did that help you at all? Maybe, did you find any solutions in that?
This is live stream, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
He reported no.
no. I mean, I don't. I just don't feel like it was indefinite. We only met 3 times.
Right.
But then within our cohort, we turned, at our school in particular, we turned it into an SEL committee
Right.
that all meets together. So within our school, sure, at a district level, I don't know what it looks like school to school.
So, and I think it would look different school to school. I don't think you're gonna find
Right.
a one-size-fits-all for Forest Hills, for Alderman, for
Right.
Myrtle Grove, well, not Myrtle Grove, because that's middle school, but but I will definitely bring it up to Dr. Faust, and then we'll also bring Julie into that conversation, because for the student support perspective, and then also with her team already in the ground and doing the training through SEL work, and with Susan Cole, they should be able to provide us of what comes next. I don't think any of us can answer those questions here, especially since the policy technically has not even been passed yet. So I think let's look at seeing if the policy passes tomorrow, and then going from there and seeing what Dr. Faust and his team have planned, and we'll see what we can bring back next. Yes, Ms. Crable.
I kind of think that whether the policy passes or not is something that they need to be taking a look at, to do some restorative justice. Hopefully it will pass. but
And I know
don't think we
they have
should
been, I
say
believe it was a
if it
3-year
passes or
plan
not.
is what they were initially on, and I think they're moving fast tracking it now. So there has been a plan in place that student support has been working on. So we'll have to hear from them. I don't want to speak for student support, especially outside of my realms. So I'd rather bring them here, or either get a report from them that I can bring back to all of you
Just for
guys
clarification.
and share on that information on what those next steps are, what they look like, and who's invited to those conversations on those next steps.
That policy has passed, and the policy committee got hold of the policy itself, and the wording has been changed and passed. So that has already been passed for the next year, coming up for the school year coming up.
Okay.
The seclusion conversation has just begun, though.
Sorry, I thought it had
That's
to be
okay, that's okay.
voted on tomorrow.
Oh, Ms. Grable has a question.
Yeah, so a couple things is, this school year coming up is year 3, so it's not accelerated. We're going into year 3, so we're right on track as far as Ms. Barnum's plan. But I wanted to ask Mr. O'Brien, since he's here, you and Dr. Jethro work closely with the principals. So would it not be incumbent upon you two to, well, maybe not you, but her, because she's elementary, and maybe, oh, now I'm drawing a blank.
Mr. Worthington.
Yes.
No, I think you're right. I do think that would come from direction, though, from the senior staff or cabinet. But I was glad that you clarified that, because that's how I understood it, that it was actually set for next year. So that would be I think that's important that we talk about the next steps, so that we can have that and be in position to make sure that we have that in place to operate it with fidelity going forward.
Yeah, because I would think that would be something Dr. Jethro would be very integral in working with our EDI officer when we get one, and working with Dr. Julie Varnum and her entire staff on that. But different schools right now already have different plans in place, which we've heard about at several board meetings. So it can't be a one-size-fits-all, but it also has to be done so that kids, like you said, Tyler, they're not hit buddies, and because out of the classroom is out of the classroom. So it doesn't matter if they're going home, it doesn't matter if they're going to the principal's office, it doesn't matter if they're sweeping with the custodian, picking up pine cones. They don't do that at elementary school. But it doesn't, that kind of stuff doesn't matter, it's individual.
And I just want to say too, the policy that was passed, there are exceptions, gun violence and drugs. I think when we looked at the data, we saw there was disproportionality, and we saw that children were getting suspended for things that weren't as serious. So I think when we looked at the data, and we had a community members lobby for a very long time over this topic as well, and they brought some very good points. And along with the PLCs that were kind of put in place, we had schools present to us, and as far as I'll take their word for it, they felt really good about the program. So hopefully, I'm not learning anything new here.
I should say I feel like we're talking about two different things. I think within our school it works really, really well.
Right.
But I just wouldn't want to speak to the value of the PLC program that we did with our 3 district level meetings, because I'm not sure what it looks like at each school.
Right.
So for us, I think it worked really well, but that was in-house aldermen what we did.
Yeah, there were 11 schools, I think, that were in the program.
Yeah, 11 elementary schools.
Yes, and by my thinking, it was the schools that either were invited or invited themselves that really wanted to work on this. So I feel like we as a board got to a place where we felt it's time to make a move, and we do want to look at restorative justice practices. I know we have an MOU with Kim Cook and UNCW, and I hope we start utilizing these things, but there are solutions to be had and conversations to be had for sure. So we welcome those.
I just think the key word is it's going to look different at every school.
Yeah.
That what we did at Virgo is not going to necessarily work at Alderman, or it may not work at Gregory or whatever else, but it's going to look different. And you have to cultivate things to a school and to the consumers within that school, which are the children. And so you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to this behavioral aspect, because students have different needs coming from different areas. And so whether they have or don't have certain resources, that can make you adjust or provide certain things. And so it's not going to look the same everywhere. And I think that mindset of everything is going to look the same is not going to necessarily be true.
Moving on to goal number 4, equitable opportunity to learn.
Okay, I saw a couple of things in blue that I think were added from seeing commonalities from other teams, I guess, and they are right there reported. I think Dr. Smith put them there. The work that I was doing with the team directly is underneath when it says from the committee. We are coming back to the idea of the mental health services and how to streamline that, or how to get to know how students are going to access in a more equitable way all those resources that the county has. So we are talking, my team again is in process of being consolidated. I have members, but they don't attend the meetings, so it's been hard to try to have a lot of input from some of them. But what we had we created a goal, and we created some short-term goals like steps. So that could be strategies or short-term goals. I didn't know really how to put them, but that's the first thing is collecting the data to determine the current access for the students and the minorities. I think everything needs to start from having what baseline, and that's what we want to see. We want to get that done by the end of August. And then the next goal, we wanted to identify the protocols in the schools. And my previous team and I started the research on that, and we found some points in common and some other differences that we wanted to put together in a document. Then the other thing that we want to do is to come into a consensus, to unify the criteria. What are the common elements that all the schools have? What are the partner entities that support that process? Because I know we have some for Hispanic population, some others that are more common for students. So all those resources that are, and make that like accessible still. Again, we have a lot of things here in the county, but for some reason people don't know about it. That connected to the stigma that mental health services have, especially in minorities. So how are we going to present that conversation to parents? So it's a lot of campaigns, a lot of conversations that need to happen and make it in uniting all these efforts that we have, again, with the social emotional curriculum that we're putting in place, with the panorama survey that is, I know it's kind of a pilot, I don't know if it's going to be implemented. So different things that are already floating around that we just need to see the common thread there to make it work for us. And then I think the biggest thing for when we conceived this idea was to have like a formal document, a formal template that is used and is common for everybody to access these services. Because the more we dig, the more we know we don't know. So there are things that I am in the field. I am in a school setting all day dealing with these kind of referrals. And then, is this part of NTSS process or is not? And then it happens that it's not all the time goes through NTSS, so sometimes goes straight to mental services. So how do you determine that? And what happens, usually the cases that we know more are the ones that are connected to behavior, because that affects learning immediately. But how about the students that are depressive, students that don't participate, that retrieve themselves from any activity? Pretty much the law of survival, if they don't disrupt, we are not going to think about them. So what system do we have for those students so they get early attention, so we can help them be successful and not drop out when they are tired of nobody paying attention and not seeing sense in their life or what they are doing with the school? So we can have like a common tool for that, and then we can present like a formal like ideas, what resources the county has, make it like a dynamic page where everybody knows and access, and then we start using all the resources we already have. I think we have a lot of things here. I know we have a lot of things. We just don't know how to access it, and knowing how to access takes time, and it's time consuming and really tiring. So we want to make like something that is easy, simple, that everybody that is here can access and see it and use it.
I agree with all of that. And last month or the month before last, we did a Superintendent Advisory, and I collaborated with Ms. Harper and Dr. Smith, Dr. Smith, on bringing students together. And one of the things they talked about was how they didn't feel they had enough support at the school level, or that their counselors were always more so in line with doing their scheduling. They're talking about what comes next, that they didn't have time to kind of talk or delve into those mental health issues. So we asked them, who knows about what? And we have the What Clinic, Wilmington Health Access for Teen Clinic, at each of our 4 traditional high schools. And I could tell you of those students, and these were probably your higher percentile in your grade class students, and not even half of them knew about what. So what can we do to get that information out to our students, to make it available? Hey, we have these resources. You don't even have to leave your building to access them. You can go downstairs, or you can go across the courtyard, and those resources are right there for you. So if you guys have any ideas on how the communications team can work to kind of get that information out to our students, to our families, and what's not just one, what is just one of them. So what else is out there for our students to take advantage of, for our families to take advantage of, so that they can access those resources, like you said, Lena, that are available to them at free or no cost, or at little or free, no cost.
Yeah, and I know we have uphill battles there with the stigma of having considering or presenting yourself as needed support from mental health. That is one thing, but at least we can make it easy to the point when they are ready to accept it and get some services. and it's there for them to access, and working with parents is the next thing we need to do, and getting that, we have the partnership with communities in school, and we have this new person that, I don't remember his name, but he's amazing. He's gonna combine the three, the three
Port City
offices.
United.
Yes, that guy went to my school, and he's amazing. He's ready. He said, I'm gonna get my hands dirty, getting into places and getting to know people and making this available. He's the perfect liaison between community and the schools, and it's pretty much what we need. If we know him and we know we have a clear system to communicate all these protocols that we have in place, it's going to be amazing, because he can just put the word out, and we're going to make it so normal that everybody that needs it is going to access it.
What if we made a more real-time available, way to, access it? I mean, I think that the resources are available, and it's just people don't yet know how to access it, and by the time people are in crisis, it's just another barrier, but what if there's a very easy link or something, something that's just always active and ready and easy for a student to get a hold of.
And that has to, I've been thinking about that, and definitely always our teachers are going to be, the frontline people for that detection, but after that, who's the next step? We're thinking counselors, right? And then when the counselors have that process, what is next? How soon do we have to wait to give them access or to make that referral? Sometimes, many times, those referrals die there when we talk to parents. Say, no, thank you, we're fine. And that's it. There is not much we can do other than the regular things we do in the school. So it's not only having the link there, it's just a lot of convincing. Exactly. So, but if we make it more normal for families to know, hey, mental health is a thing.
It's a normal thing.
Exactly. Right? So, and then if you need help, and they hear it from communities in the school, if they hear at their church, if they hear in the afternoon school when they go, and they hear, okay, we have all this. So when we talk more about it, it starts making sense and become the common language. That's the way we change culture, little by little. And then, but when that happens, we start having the clear resources. Yeah, they are ready. This is what we need to do. So.
And also, not just counselors, but your social workers, because they're the ones who really do a lot of that heavy lifting. Counselors get them to the social worker, and the social worker and the mental health providers, the school psychologists and things, they're the ones who really pull in the wraparound services.
And I know that there's been some efforts also. I had an interview with Ms. Barnum back last year or something about that exactly, and there was an initiative of putting mental health providers in every school, and that was done. So there are many things, again, a lot of things are in place. We just need to put them all together and make them work.
Get some of the roadblocks.
Exactly, yeah.
And you said a key point. I remember when Dr. Smith, when we started all of this work, she would say you can't just change what the school is doing. It can't just be the school that's making this impact. It has to you have to change the culture. So getting that community buy-in and making sure that we are effectively using those community partnerships that we have in our school is going to be crucial when we change this world, when we change and increase and improve on this work. It's like we can't just do it by ourselves, because we have, like Lena was saying, we have that parent kind of gap where we're not reaching all of our families the way we could be reaching them, and where they're not wanting to, for whatever reason, reach out and communicate with us. But if they're reaching out and they're in the community, and we can have a resource who's in the community with them that gets us closer to our families, then through changing that culture, we'll be able to propel this work and keep it going. So that just brought me back to Dr. Smith's beginning. So for us always to kind of remember, we're not just changing what New Hanover County Schools is doing. We're trying to change what New Hanover County is doing. All right, and then the final goal 6, accountability.
So since I'm here and I'm going to talk, I'll talk about that. But just before I get to that, May is Mental Health Month, and Healing Your Almond will be sponsoring Flipping the Barbershop, which will be for Black men all born and raised in New Hanover or Brunswick County. And one of the things they will be addressing is the stigma of mental health. So things that people talk about often in this community and other communities when we talk about communities of color. is mental health stigma, but the type of things that people do to address that, to be perfectly honest, are not engaging, and people of color have no interest in going. So, Healing Your Alma will be hosting Flip in the Barbershop. Tickets are available on flipinthebarbershop.com. 11th and 12th graders would be appropriate to attend, but to be perfectly honest, I think teachers should be in attendance because it's a culture that teachers know nothing about. Not because there's anything wrong with teachers, they just don't have access to this type of culture. So it would give them access in a very safe environment with lots of mental health professionals running around to support. It will be held at Cape Fear Community College May 26th at 6 p.m. We typically do not charge. We've decided to start charging, so it's $10.
I see you flipping the school bus in our future.
You know, I would need a lot of support to pull that off, but May 2023, I'm not against it. Every May, Healing Your Almond will be hosting a community-based mental health event, simply because we work out of the community a lot, so we try to give back in May because that's what works for our schedule. Anyway, if anybody has any questions about that, if anybody wants to help sponsor, I would love you mean it, because $10 a ticket does not cover the cost of putting on such a huge event, and we all know how I do, so there will be catering, there will be door prizes, there will be a DJ. Y'all know how I roll. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be done well. So therefore, it's expensive. So if you'd like to help sponsor, please feel free. Also, if you just want to buy some tickets to come hang out with us for a night and listen to some good music and talk about mental health.
What's the day again, May 23rd?
May 26th.
It's the last day of school.
At 6 p.m.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, I did not plan it that way, by the way. The date is because of CFCC's availability. All right, so goal 6. Just as an FYI, I am currently the chair, but I'm seeking a co-chair. I am staying the chair because the goal is accountability, and there's a lot of power dynamics that are super unhealthy in this county. So as much as I would want to walk away, I do not work for New Hanover County and have no problem holding anybody in New Hanover County accountable for anything. As a reminder, if anybody needs that, I'm available. So we're also looking for a co-chair though, because I suck at organization, just in terms of I'm super busy, so getting people in the same place at the same time is not my strong suit. However, when we did meet with my subcommittee, we came up with some pretty awesome goals, in my opinion. Decrease I can't say that word, disproportionalities. Thank you. And exclusionary practices, which actually is mentioned in other people's goals as well, by 10%. Utilizing each school's baseline. So what we realize is that every school is at a different place. And I think when we make these like blanketed rules, some schools are already doing it, and then other schools, it stresses them out, and they have no idea how they're going to reach that goal because there's this big gap. So one of the things we talked about was establishing the baseline of where schools are at, and then asking them to decrease the practices by 10% because that seems more reasonable. This way we're comparing apples to apples. And then goal 2 is to have more schools enrolled in AI, more students enrolled in AIG, that are misrepresented otherwise, and what does that look like? And I think Lena talked a little bit about that earlier. Where we are kind of stuck is strategies, and that main reason for that, and this is just me passing the buck, I may have missed a deadline somewhere, is I need a deadline. Like I need someone to say, Franchon, you need to meet with your group, and your deadline is this day, and this is who you have to report to. Because that kind of structure works for me. So that's where we are. I will say my group is awesome, and when we meet, we get things done very quickly. So like this took, I think, 45 minutes. And everybody in the committee was in attendance. So we all seem dedicated and opinionated, but thinking in the same like way. So I really like my group. I just need some guidance about, strategies and what the deadline is for that.
So if anyone's looking to help Franchon and be her co-chair, she is open and looking for one. Shoot her an email. Anything else we'd like to talk about on our review of short-term goals and strategies before we move on to our next item on the agenda?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
And this wasn't mentioned, but Mr. O'Brien, can you talk about where the stay program, because I know the format has changed over time. Is it a reasoning behind it? And I know
Well, the program is still exists. So it may look different at middle schools. Some may have it incorporated into their master schedule. Others may have it worked into their mastery time. But at the high school level,
Because it's a half a semester program now for incoming freshmen, so that's why I was just asking.
Okay. So it may be different at, and I'm not sure which high school you're referring to, but I do know at the high schools that it's still a course that the students can sign up for.
Yeah, it used to be I think it was associated, and I may be wrong, so anybody that's out there via virtual or wherever can correct me. It used to be associated with the English classes within high school.
You're right.
And so now, because usually when students leave and they need that support, that was the support avenue. And nothing against AIG and nothing against promoting AIG, but you have a program within your county that works. And so that was the state program. And a lot of students have graduated and went to college through state, whether it was community college or whether it was a four-year college. And those were minority students. And so that's why I always bring up the state program, because it's like, even when I'm looking for resources or professional development, it's like it's not being as promoted as some, and I know this is a federal dollars, but as a program that has actually shown significant growth, especially from students who sometimes don't have that support in a large high school where they're just sometimes a number. And so that's why I was just asking.
Absolutely, and you're right. At some schools, they were able to pair it with a course and offer it year-long, where they would go on A day, B day. And so, and then at other schools, they operated on a semester basis, and sometimes even both models in the same school, just depending on what was available and who was available to teach it. It is a locally created elective, but I would agree with you. It's had tremendous success over the years.
And just, I know my team, we just worked on a video recently with Hoggart Stay. They used to call them like their cardboard videos.
And then-
Yeah, so we just worked with Hoggart, and they were the only school who wanted to do one this year. So we have their video that will be coming out hopefully later this week, at the latest early next week. And we're still hoping to hear from the other state programs on how those students would, if they would like to do their cardboard videos too, so we can go out and reach out to those kids to do those videos. But that's something that I can still work with my team on, helping to promote that program further.
I mean, if we're looking to promote middle of the road, looking at students who can go left or right, because everyone is not AIG material. However, everyone can go and succeed in a post-education environment or post-secondary education environment. And so we have to kind of look at what programs and programming is actually working. So yes, we want to increase the number of students who are in AIG programs, but we want to increase the numbers who have post-secondary learning opportunities and career pathways. And okay, let's look at these numbers, you know, like, and are showing that growth and that prospect. And so that's why I question.
And then one of the benefits I see in state is like that opportunity that it takes other students to colleges across the state, because like they are going to Campbell, they're going to ECU, they're going to Appalachian State. So there's an opportunity that some of those demographics and students may not experience without a program like stay.
Yeah.
I feel like
And
Kenya just gave us our strategy.
Yeah.
Good look, thank you for that.
And so, and I'm actually, let me just shout out one of Jessica Elliott at New Hanover High School. My son in 12th grade, he lost his mind. I think he didn't want to leave school, but she was his state teacher and his English teacher. And so it made, that was the connection to get my son out of school. And you know, college wasn't necessarily, so he went to the Army and just various things, but it was that aspect of someone to build that relationship with that student over a 4-year period. A guidance counselor can't necessarily do that because they're seeing so many students. But if you have that pathway, think about how many students can be just supported.
Karen, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so earlier in this initiative, we were talking about recruiting and retaining teachers of color or minority teachers. I didn't hear any conversation about that today, as you know, under any of the goals. I'm wondering where we are with that. Have we kind of lost sight of that, or?
So, I don't think we've lost sight of it. I know our HR department HR division has been working to increase their attendance at some of our HBCU universities and adding them into their regular travels. So I know that's happening. I can get a full report from HR and have back to you guys at our next meeting. I also know that we're looking, New Hanover County Schools is doing a whole Grow Your Own campaign right now. So the Start Here, Grow Here theme, we've offered, and board members help me if I'm wrong, 12 teacher scholarships where we're going to be able to take TAs to teachers, where we're offering them the opportunity to, while they're still working and still as employees, while still maintaining their same benefits, we're paying for them to go back to college to get their license and to come teach for the district. In addition, tomorrow we'll also be, the board will also be announcing their board student scholarship recipients. So that list that is also how we're working and helping to promote. One of our students who received a board scholarship, he is teaching right now at Myrtle Grove doing his student teaching, and he is a bilingual minority educator, so we will be having him coming back. So that's kind of already how we're able to kind of see the influx of what we are doing and what we have been doing and what we're working towards. But I can get you a full report from HR next time we meet.
Okay, and also, I'm not sure if you know about it, but there's a Educator of Colors Network group that's out of UNCW. And I saw Dr. Smith in a couple of meetings further back. So I don't know if someone from the system can maybe connect with that group and work with them as well.
I'm a member of AGA, so I'll reach out to them and see if they're aware, and we can definitely get someone on.
Chris, when you're doing your Grow Your Own report, can you just ask how many are people of color, and then also how many are bilingual?
Yeah.
So we got quite a bit, I guess, to get to. So if everybody's finished with the update, I know we only meet quarterly now, so it's been a long time since we met, and so we've expanded our discussion. I know we do subcommittee work, but we only get to meet quarterly now. So we had a lot to cover, and a lot has been happening. So who's going to do the next?
So the next item we have is development of district communication plan, and this is just how do we want to move forward with EDI, with ensuring transparency and ensuring we're communicating and being as open and accountable as the work regarding the work we're doing with our community. I know we've all seen kind of like that misconception of when you mention the word equity, it means something totally different than what we see ourselves doing. So how can we turn that tide and ensure that we're communicating from the district side, from the work that we are doing, to ensure that we're not getting those misconceptions anymore?
Didn't you already create like this beautiful website? Isn't that already a thing?
That accountability thing, that looks
So
pretty
we
cool.
do have the website, and we will, we have a new webmaster who's come on, and when Dr. Smith was here, we were working to update the website. So there's kind of been like a little delay in the website. It's still there, and it's still, you can get to it. But I definitely will say it needs updates, and we will be working on that.
I mean, I'm not saying we have to use that. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to reinvent a wheel when you already, if I remember correctly, it was you. I don't know if you had any help, but I remember there was a lot of time and investment put into this. So if that is something that already exists and we're looking for transparency, that can be one possible communication way. We also live stream these, so that's another communication way.
People are also allowed to come in person.
Yep.
Right.
And maybe just like you list the school board meetings on the calendar for the county, you can just put these meetings.
These meetings are on the calendar,
They're usually announced at board meetings too in the next EDI.
announced at board meetings.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, but everybody doesn't come to the board meeting, so.
And
they
this
can
meeting
see it.
is being streamed right now, so.
Can I ask you a question? I think I'm trying to get to a point here. What do you think was the purpose behind you asking about us being transparent? Is it complaints, or, in my mind, I feel like,
Can I go back to
There's-
my little hidey hole and not respond to that question?
can I tell you, Lacey,
Honestly, I think you know what equity is. Casey knows what we're doing. Friend Sean knows what we're doing. Karen knows why we're here. Everyone here knows why we're here. But whether you like it or not, there is a stigma now associated with our work. So as we continue, as we move forward with our work, I think we owe it to ourselves, our past selves who sat here 3 years ago and started this, to ensure that this work continues no matter what. And I think in order for us to continue that work, we need to make sure that no one can say that the work we're doing is not the work we're doing. They can't say we're sitting here and we are telling Ms. Walker, Tyler, Casey Smith, Al O'Brien, Stephanie Craybill that they're racist because they're white, is simply because they're being white. We have to be able to say, we want to say, no, that's not what we're doing. That's not what this conversation is about. That's not what we're trying to do for our students. So for me, speaking as Caress Clegg, the community member, that is why I say this. And this item was put on the agenda before this was like, I got this agenda from Dr. Smith and then just taking it over, so I can't even say that's what she was thinking. But if I'm looking at it, that's been, as I sit at board meetings every week and I listen to call to the audience speeches and I see signs and I see reports, that would be my concern with our work, is just ensuring that we are being as upfront, which I think we all are, but giving them no way to kind of dig in and say, we're not doing the work for our students, all of our students.
Right.
I would just say, unfortunately, the conversation may always go that way for some people.
That's the point I was making.
And it may.
People want to be loud to be
But
loud.
if it does, then I want to say, hey, go visit our website, you have it right
Exactly.
here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
Yeah,
that, so the flip side of that coin is, I hear what you're saying, which I was unaware of. That's probably because I give no energy to those types of conversations. But the types of conversations I do unfortunately have to give energy to is when my phone rings and people say, hey, I heard you're on this committee, but they're not doing anything.
Well,
So.
And then that's another reason
So
why we have
that's
this
a different-
website and say, hey, this is
Right,
what we're doing.
Right, so I think that that's an opportunity to put the information up there, but also to recognize that we don't necessarily have authority. And I think that people, I think there's an educational point, a reminder that the superintendent of this county has a tremendous amount of authority, and the board has a tremendous amount of authority. And we are simply advisors that sometimes are respected and listened to and sometimes are not. And I think the way to kind of mitigate some of that is by putting it where everybody can see it and saying, this is what we've asked for, because this is what we've asked for, and this is what's happening, and there's a huge gap. So I feel like in order to kind of there are the people that are always going to say something negative. I know that that's a thing, but there are also people that are just very impatient for change, which I'm on that team, let me be clear. Like, that's my team. And I think that is another reason that may have been on there. Because when I hear that, that's immediately what I thought, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, so the people that are calling my phone are also calling other people's phone and saying, where's the transparency? So, but getting back to answering your question.
So can you send those people who are calling your phone and tell them to call like the same news outlets and the same news networks and come to the board meetings and voice their opinions there? Because we are or me personally, from a communication standpoint for the district, am only hearing this one side.
Yeah, so the person that I'm talking about is in board meetings all the time.
Okay.
Like, all the time. More than I've ever been in my life, or will be. But getting back to this. So to add to transparency, I think it would be about communicating our goals, which I think we were in the beginning, but I don't think we ever solidified them to the point where people felt comfortable publishing them. So to me, the next step would be the goals that we just went over. People need to like sign off on them, whatever that may be. And then we make those public. And again, I think it's an educational point of saying, like, this is what we want, this is what we've asked for, and then putting the responsibility back on the superintendent and back on the board to say whether or not they did what we've asked for. Because we're catching heat simply because it's easy. It's easy to call me, right? I'm not superintendent of Hanover County Schools. Nobody cares about me in this county. So it's very easy to call me, right? It's not as easy as to hold other people accountable. So that's why I think we mitigate some of that by just saying clearly, like, this is what we signed up on, this is what we're looking for, this is where we're at. And I think that will help people to know, like, where's the ball on the court, because a lot of people don't understand, because this is such a huge process. So I think that would help a little bit.
Just want to say also, there are a lot of people out in the community that do support this work as well. A lot of times when the loudest voice in the room, it seems like that is what a lot of people are feeling, and it's not necessarily true. You know, like I say, we just came from the State of the County Address where they added the words equity in there. And I feel like, you know, when we have our board meetings and we have called audience, they are loud and they're sometimes not very nice and et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, that's what everyone feels, you know? And then we have to understand that too on the board. You know, we take a lot at these board meetings. We can't respond, we have to listen, even if we disagree with it. But at the same time, I know that's not.
Yeah, I understand. And again, this is, I wish I was over in that seat right now. Like, this is Caress Clegg speaking, but I sit at those board meetings and there are some people, sometimes there are people to the back of me. I am fearful for my life. I am fearful for stepping out of this room, of going to the bathroom by myself. So, like, I feel like, no, there are people who support this work. I know there are people who support this work. But as a black woman who has to sit at some of these meetings, those loud voices, they come with a pack. They pack a punch. So I think we can't discount those voices because they matter. When you see or when you hear something that other people are saying to the back of you, then you can't help to hear the loudest voices in the room because no one's coming and standing up and saying anymore. And it could be because they're tired, because they came up here for years and years and said it and stood up and said, we needed this or we needed that. But it is frightful as a black woman sometimes sitting in these meetings.
Yeah, it's as contentious as I've ever seen it, although I'm on the board for only a year and a half. I don't think it's ever been this intense, you know, and we deal with it every meeting. And, you know, it's a very tough thing to look at when you see people standing in the back of the room that, I mean, it's intimidating. And I know we've had some community members say that, you know, we should kick people out or, I mean, I think we're working on that. You know, we're going to talk about decorum rules tomorrow night. At the same time, you know, people feel they have a First Amendment right to come and say certain things. It's intimidating sometimes. But, you know, the work has to continue and, you know, we're going to take heat for some things and we have to just adapt. And I hear what you're saying totally. It's a tough situation, especially in a political year, you know, when politics is the big thing. And a lot of the verbiage that people are using is negative and, you know, they want to, you know, that's why I did my best, you know, on the EDI committee here to not really use the words like Franchon was saying, use the same word because you start, you know, it starts adding on to that and it gives it, I wouldn't say credence, but it gives them, you know, more talking points. So I understand, I mean, maybe to your point, if people can come out that do support the work can come out to our meetings too, that would be very nice. That would be a good thing to do. But I'm up for solutions and suggestions, so.
But yeah, I don't want to, thank you, Franchon, for your suggestions. I will work on the website, just not a full recreate, but modifying it to be on district brand standards and work on publishing our goals and making sure that level of accountability is there. So thank you for that and everyone else for your pieces.
Next, do you need some help? Do you want some support with that?
Oh, probably if you would like to reach out to me, shoot me an email, yeah. Budget update, anything to update? I know the budget isn't voted on until tomorrow, but is there anything that we can?
Well, I know I've got an update from HR that they are working to fill Dr. Smith's role. That's not exactly budget related, but we are going to discuss the budget tomorrow night, so I hate to get ahead of that. You know, I've gotten an update on it. And, you know, Hugh, Manus, I, and Dr. Smith got together and put together some suggestions, but we still have to have that discussion. So I don't want to get ahead of it. I'm going to obviously encourage that we do get funding for, you know, the office because I think they deserve support. And I don't personally think it was asking too much. So I'm going to advocate for that tomorrow night. I don't know how fellow board members will feel about it, but we are in a weird position with county commissioners at the moment because we're trying to raise teacher, you know, TA pay and things like that. And it's a tough conversation, but I don't have anything beyond that until we talk about it tomorrow night. You know, maybe next time we can have a update.
I would just like to encourage along those lines and this budget discussion, the notion of like a single individual sort of coordinating and serving as like the the equity chief, I think it's problematic in the long term, and I know a lot of people here participated in a budget draft for this work. And if it is truly to be like a pillar, and if it's truly to be a value as a system and an institution, then, and I know you have to make really hard decisions about what doesn't get, the money. But I really worry about the sustainability of all of the effort here and before here, with just sort of having a single office and that really being it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I voiced that before.
I agree too. I won't be at the board meeting, but I echo everything that you're saying. I don't see how the EDI officer can get their job done without those supports.
They need supports and they need a budget, and I agree, and I've advocated for that. We as a board member, we pass the budget, but the recommendation comes from the staff and superintendent. So we want to hear what they have to say tomorrow night, before I get us, because I did definitely early on, we worked with Dr. Smith to form what we think. And I think what I'm learning from the process is you ask high, and hopefully you don't get everything you ask for, but at least you've asked. But I agree with you, Dr. Casey Smith. That we can't have an office without it. And it is one of the pillars of our strategic plan. So it has to be intentional.
So I'm sorry, we were having a little sidebar because we looked up there and didn't recognize those budget lines and numbers. And so was there an evolution? I think we lost a position based on what I just saw on the screen.
I thought originally.
Those were like my original notes from the
Got it.
meeting the budget session that the board had like a month ago.
Okay, well, initially, when the budget,
So
she was
when-
doing the strategic plan for the budget for.
Those items were the numbers that Dr. Smith talked to us about.
Okay, but it was another position that was along the lines of the family and, what was that?
Outreach.
I saw
The
family engagement
coordinator,
up there,
but it was
the youth.
another position.
There was
Do
admin
we remember
support.
what the other position was?
They're asking for admin support and
I was
There
admin
was a
support.
student engagement and equity coordinator.
Yes.
Was that
Exactly.
it? That's it right there. Okay. Because I knew it was like two positions, and then it was an administrator, and then it would have been the director. And then, of course, the trainers and all of that stuff, but it's a missing position. And so that's the one that's missing.
It may just not be on my list. I'll have to go in and edit that. But it was just everything that I was talking with Dr. Smith with on last week when she was briefing me on everything. So we have students who are set to speak next, so I don't want to take up too much time. So just regarding the parent work group, there are 105 applications. So for the selection process, we're going to have the EDI committee will review and rank applicants based on an established criteria and rubric. The top 50 applicants will be assigned a random number, 1 through 50, and a random drawing of the first 25 applicants will be selected to determine the membership of the EDI parent work group. So if there's anyone willing or wanting to serve on the committee or panel for the applicants, shoot me an email.
How many times does that subgroup need to meet?
It has not stated.
If you can promise me 3 or less, I got you. Can we negotiate real quick? Like if I can get
3 or less meetings, I can do that, yes.
Bet, I'm in.
And when is that going to happen? Because if it's the next 2 weeks.
It probably will not happen until after the school year ends.
Yes, okay.
So I've got Franchon, Tyler, and Lena.
Sean, I think
I
Sean.
can too,
That's
but.
Oh, Sean, I'm sorry, I
don't-
didn't see your hand.
Very capable people.
Isn't that perfect though? You've got parent,
Yeah, of
community
course.
member,
Parent, that's
admin,
true.
teacher.
Yeah, perfect.
That is perfect.
All right, so first up, we do have, now I'm going to turn it over to the student voice update from Dr. Casey Smith and Ms. Harper and their students.
Yeah, so while they're figuring out maybe where they're gonna speak, we got 3 students here this evening. There will be, I think, 4 or 5 tomorrow night at the regular board meeting. And what they're gonna share with you is the same thing they're gonna share with the regular board tomorrow. And yeah, you guys, come on over here. You can use this.
Is that mic on?
They can use this, right? This podium up here. So we have Tanea Toon from Laney. Benji is at Caney
Yep.
from also Laney, and Isaiah Singleton from Ashley.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we assured them this was an incredibly supportive environment. They had the really challenging task of collaboratively preparing like a 5-minute presentation, so did an excellent job. Go for it.
So I hope you guys are having a good day today. So I just want to start off just by giving you a definition of student voice, because a lot of people assume that when we refer to student voice, we're talking about my vocal cords, Tanea's vocal cords. It's a little more complex than that. So a more, I guess, specific definition would be is to recognize and act upon the fact that students are the primary stakeholders of our education and should be partners in shaping it. Now, on August 17th, 2021, I presented a speech that highlighted the importance of including students' voices within this district's decision-making. I received immense praise and gratification, which I really appreciated. And with that said, myself, along with several other students and adult allies, we began creating a framework that would make students more involved in decisions within the county. So from September 2021 all the way until about January of this year, we met at least once a week to discuss our goals of the Student Voice Project. We created methods of gaining support. We developed application materials and brainstormed ways in which authentic student voice structures can be directly applicable to our county. So in January, we selected a group of 19 unique individuals from several different high schools to collaborate with us in the Student Voice Project and just to create change. And since then, we have met about once a week to discuss topics such as advocacy and solution methods, school governance, and important student equity terms. And today, we feel confident in our ability to present to you our personal experiences with the Student Voice Project. We will share briefly about Educational Equity 101, mapping issues and root causes, authentic student voice structures, gathering peer input about issues in student voice structures, local governance, and our call to action.
Foundational to understanding student voice possibilities is understanding educational equity. Our group discussed what makes identities unique, such as gender identity, race, class, disability, immigration status, language, religion, location, and sexual orientation, and how we...
Benji, can you put it up closer to your mouth?
That could...
Yeah.
Do you want me to reread it?
Yeah.
It's the
Just keep it up close to your
microphone.
mouth.
It needs to be turned up.
Sorry.
And how intersecting these identities can create complex challenges for members of marginalized groups in our community. These factors contribute to an opportunity gap that is not the fault of the student, but the system making success difficult. We can't change our identities, but we can seek ways to change the system through equity. Equity is having access to fair and impartial sources. Equity is creating a safe space to share, where acknowledging and respecting others by recognizing that each person is an expert in their own individual experiences. We can then apply what we learn to current issues in our schools, where the goal is to create a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive learning environment.
Part of our job as student leaders is understanding not only the surface level issues, but the underlying causes of the problems in our school district that we face. For example, symptoms for an issue like a common cold include coughing, sneezing, a runny nose, but the underlying issues hidden behind these symptoms would be bad hygiene, stress, or unhealthy habits. In school, teachers see the mere symptoms of many issues our students face, like low performance and drive, bad behavior, or a lack of diversity. Yet they often are unaware of the deeper causes of these issues, like poor home environments, lack of role models, or school support, and even mental health issues. Students, on the other hand, witness these causes among their peers and can provide valuable insight within our district to combat these issues. However, the ways we are included to provide insight vary along a well-documented continuum.
So in our 3 months working with Student Voice, we had the opportunity to learn about the Student Voice Continuum and the ladder of student involvement, which you should be able to see on your handout. We then identified various student voice structures in New Hanover County Schools available to us, including but not limited to student-led clubs and student equity teams, safe promise clubs, and student feedback boxes. When further dissecting these structures, we analyze what makes them efficient and effective. Some amiable qualities include true diversity, lasting change, good leadership, multiple solutions, and respectful collaboration between peers and adult allies. We subsequently mapped out who some of our adult decision-making targets were. Our decision-maker targets, for example, included our county commissioners. Without actual change, our decisions and dialogue mean nothing. Power is the ability to act. So now Benji is going to talk about how our student voice structures become more effective when we hear from more people. Because, you know, 2 eyes are better than 1.
The peer input process is a relatively quick and structured way to get input and insight from peers to catalyze and initiate and solve problems in your community. We learned about different ways to facilitate peer input, such as surveying, conducting focus groups, and student roundtables or forums. As a group, we learned several different factors that would affect the way in which we gathered this information from our fellow students and community members. We ultimately believe that we should have a diverse population to serve with adequate representation. This includes students in the general education, academically and intellectually gifted students, students with special needs, support staff, admin, teachers, and students from various backgrounds, experiences, and households. When gathering peer input, we plan to utilize tools like the Student Bill of Rights and Student Voice Continuum, which are also printed in your handout.
During our April 26th session, we had the honor of Board Chair Stephanie Crabbill to join us and educate us about the ins and outs of what goes on in the district regarding the school board. We got an opportunity to dive deep into the differences between policies, regulations, and resolutions. We were able to ask Board Chair Crabbill some of our questions, and she gave us a lot of helpful feedback. Of course, there's still much to learn about how the school board is ran, but we all came back with a better idea of how our school board does work. A lot of students don't know how decisions are made that affect them, so this was a very important session that gave us a better understanding that we can now share with our peers.
As you can see, we have learned quite a bit in our short time working this spring. To reiterate, this is a time-bound project ending in June, that seeks to map various authentic student voice structures in our school system and ultimately to provide a final product that would support the growth and sustainability of authentic student and youth voice structures for our peers and future students. As Isaiah said at the beginning, student voice is recognizing and acting upon the fact that students are primary stakeholders, and our education should be partners in shaping it. Having said this, we would like to share our call to action with you all and our community. In our final month of the project, we will be working on drafting a policy for NHCS to adopt, which seeks to grow, continue, and sustain authentic student voice structures. We will present this draft policy at a roundtable on June 1st, which we will help to facilitate. We would like to invite senior administration officers, board members, and additional students, such as those in student equity teams, to this roundtable. Our goal would be to leave the roundtable with a policy that has truly been refined and constructed with a multi-generational and diverse group of adult and student stakeholders. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share this project this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank our 3 students. I've been working with Isaiah for well over a year now because he's also a part of Dr. Faust's Superintendent Advisory. I've gotten to meet and engage with Benji through Student Voice, as well as he represented the district at a high-tech learner initiative at Live Oak Bank this year. And I've been working with Tanea and gotten to know her as well with Student Voice. And I also want to thank the excellent work and ally and advisors of Dr. Casey Smith and Ms. Harper. So I'm going to let you guys give them any questions you have for them or their advisors really quickly, because we do have Abby and Brian who go next to.
Okay, great. My question is, over the last 3 months, what did you learn that surprised you the most?
For me, I learned that there were other kids that supported this type of project and that had the same mindset as me. I thought I was, the only one who really cared about this. And then I saw other kids who weren't just high schoolers, but were middle schoolers as well, who cared about things like this, being in rooms like this with adult stakeholders who actually care about what we do and what we have to say. So that's kind of what I learned, that other people support this just as much as I do.
And I hope that you learned that you guys are excellent public speakers and advocates for students, because that's what I learned when I talked with you. So you should all be very, very proud of yourself, and I hope that that is something that you feel good about.
I'm looking forward to hearing about the policy.
Isaiah, I know you want to say something. I know you want to answer that.
The most interesting session, in my opinion, was when we talked about policies and regulations. It wasn't as straightforward as I, previously assumed. It's not, here's my assertion, who wants yes and who votes no. It's more complex than that. There's a lot of research that goes into it, a lot of other inputs, and a lot of just general opinions. And even if those opinions are not valid, our policies and our regulations go deeper than just like something, so it's like a simple statement, if that makes sense. So I just found it very interesting to learn about how the board does handle those processes and how much time and research goes into those, a lot more than like someone like me would know. So
You'll find out even more when we talk on June 1st.
I was going to say pretty much exactly what she said, but also I just wanted to add like that. I didn't realize that there were as many adults that care too. Like, I always saw people don't want to listen to us because we're kids, and I don't know, our opinion doesn't really matter. But doing this whole program, it gives us a reason to want to make change. It gives us people who actually care about the stuff that we care about and want to see change in our schools the way that we do. So.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, now we're going to have Abby and Mr. Jones come up, and they can present on the Student Summit that happened last week.
Okay, is this on? Okay, I didn't want to give it back, thanks. Awesome. These are just some pictures, so I don't know if, Chris, you just want to scan through them as I talk. Just a little slideshow for everyone. So my name's Abby Nobles. Nice to meet everyone. Brian Jones is my counterpart in this work. So I'll just give a little brief synopsis on what the student equity teams are and then move into our summit. So student equity teams began as a brainchild of the District Equity Work Group. We started in March 2020 with the mission to empower and show students that they have a voice to validate their perspectives and foster group advocacy. Our 4 pillars of purpose for these teams are leadership, advocacy, promoting positive school cultures of belonging, and opportunities to be seen as advisors at various levels of influence, starting with their school site. The team acts as advisory groups for staff in buildings and advocates for students. They have 1 to 2 meetings monthly during school hours and work to hear the perspectives of their students to drive school-based change. So they work to, the school site coordinators at each school work to hear what the students have to say and then empower them to make school-based change. Students are selected collaboratively by teachers, counselors, social workers, and principals, and groups should be demographically representative of their student body and should be students whose voices are not traditionally tapped into. This year, the focus of these groups is generating awareness of the importance of positive school cultures that promote spaces of belonging for all students. This has come in the form of student-led trainings for teachers on student-staff relationships, awareness campaigns, recommendations for administrations, positive posters in hallways, armbands to raise awareness, mastery presentations for staff and students, a student-centered interactive website for students to support the student body's needs, rebranding school stereotypes, and suggestion boxes. All of those things have been done by student equity teams this year in the district. On Thursday, April 28th, which is what you're seeing, New Hanover County Schools Equity Work Group in conjunction with New Hanover County Government Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department hosted the first student summit at Cape Fear Community College. The summit was a celebration for students on all the work that they'd completed in the year that I just mentioned, with a focus on We Hear You. 195 students across the district from 15 of the 17 middle and high schools were represented. We do have student equity teams at every middle and high school, but 15 of 17 came, 195 members. ESL newcomers, ESL students, EC, OCS, General Ed, Honors, AP, On-Level, and Dual Enrollment, all students were represented at this event. The keynote address at the summit was We Hear You, The Power of Your Voice from Brandon Hickman, Coast 97.3's radio DJ known as Big B. Students chose between 6 breakout sessions that they created the topics for. They collaborated with students from various schools in roundtable discussions to share out what their student equity teams had been working on this year, and participated in a student listening panel hosted by Big B and a New Hanover High School student, Caden Morton, and Taneo was on the panel. 5 other students were on the panel answering student-generated questions. The breakout session topics were generated by students. The topics surrounded appreciating humanity and human dignity, belonging and inclusivity, staff-teacher relationships, leadership, school safety and violence, and leadership capacity. The sessions were hosted by community leaders, Dr. Danielle Roseborough, Dr. Adele Segovia, and Dr. Brooke Lambert from UNCW, myself, a Southeast Regional Teacher of the Year, Travis Corpening, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Specialist for New Hanover County, Communities and Schools Professionals Anthony Nixon and Kiana Williams, City of Wilmington Chief Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Officer Joe Conway. Special guests for the event included Tabari Wallace from NCDPI and Freebird McKinney from Participate Learning. Also in attendance at the event were Stephanie Walker, Stephanie Adams, Hugh McManus, and Stephanie Craybill. At the summit, students collaborated to create an affirmation statement during one of their breakout sessions, and that's actually the last slide, if you guys want to read it. Sorry, I'm rushing. Brian told me that I had to go fast. He said he had something to say. So they created this affirmation statement during one of the sessions led by Dr. Danielle Roseborough. It's a beautiful statement. These are their words, and she typed it up so that you all could see it. The students' response was overwhelmingly positive. All were actively engaged. Energy was abundant, and they were buzzing with excitement, with feelings of empowerment, that their voices mattered, and that they were able to share and problem solve together as New Hanover County Schools Student Equity Team cohort. One student during the roundtable sharing session stood up and told the students from the student's voice to give themselves a round of applause for showing up and using their voices to collaborate with one another across the district. They walked away from the event saying that they loved talking to other students from other schools, how they cannot wait to do this again, how their student equity teams can inspire each other to new action for next year, and how they loved being able to communicate with their peers about equity and see so many people, students and adults, that do care. Next year, the summit and student teams will focus on navigating how to best use their voice to create school cultures that foster a greater sense of belonging.
To add to what Abby has said, the pictures and everything that we showed you all
And I will switch over to the agenda, which, again, you just, the itinerary. You've heard most of it already, but it was pretty much a full day. So from 9 to, what time did we release, 1:30? 1 to 1:30 we did it. This is actually our second convening. I just want to reiterate, it took a lot to do this. It took facilitators from the schools. It took teachers. It took social workers. It took counselors. It took the equity work group. It took the work of so many people. I will say the challenge was this last time was with the lack of a budget, with Dr. Smith's new role, and not the visible support that there was once before, it made it that much harder. So to be honest, I appreciate all the support we always get from everyone, but the last time I was here, I made a comment, and that is some of the things that are being said, it has to be more visible. It can't be behind closed doors. It can't be a text message. It can't be on the side of anywhere, of a meeting, after a meeting, or so forth. It took a lot. We started back in 2019. You and I started in 2019. We started the student, right, just before COVID started. It took so much. You have to remember what Dr. LaShawn Smith, who is my mentor, she did hire me, I'm a little biased, I admit, many years ago. It took all of the work that she did. This is New Everett County Schools. I am a graduate of Harvard High School. I am a product of New Everett County Schools. It is 2022, and we're still having some of the same conversations. Whether it was dropout prevention team, it is what it is. And let's be real, tomorrow when the board meets, many of us have had conversations. I don't know what budget is being proposed, but in all fairness, and I want to stay employed.
See, so that's the problem, though. That's the problem, is that you
mean
don't
staying
have the
employed?
power. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
you
have the
feeling
power,
like-
yes,
yeah, because
yes.
you need to stay employed, because you need to eat and have
I've got
safety.
right. I've got my son is in college, and he's
Right.
gonna stay there. See,
Right.
I hope is he looking? Okay, anyway, is he watching?
You know James is watching.
I was texting him on the side, I admit. But with all that said, Dr. Smith continuously stayed consistent. I didn't know we were going to be able to do what we were going to do. She got the money that she did. I just ask that we continue to do justice by her. If we didn't do it before, because we didn't. If we do justice by her, if we do justice by our kids, at the end of the day, whether we're talking about student equity teams, whether we're talking about students' voice, why not really for the kids to continuously say between both groups, we didn't know adults cared, and they've been saying that from day one. We didn't know the adults cared. I can pull up documentation and say over and over, they didn't think anyone was listening. And in all fairness, I'm a school social worker. If my kids don't think that I'm listening, then I am doing a horrible job. I am doing a horrible job. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying, if kids don't know that we're listening, any of us in the professional education. So having said all that, the event was wonderful. I wish more people could experience it. I'm sorry, many people have not. But
What's the budget? What's the budget?
Yes, the students have requested, but at the same time too, we did do another one in November. In all fairness, and I think many of you already spoke to it, with all the loud voices, there are concerns that we have. But again, the kids don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't understand the politics. They don't know an election is coming. Only thing they know is they want to get a chance to get together and while someone's listening to us, and they want to know that their friends, regardless of what they may be going through, regardless of their demographics, are going to be treated with respect, and that has been consistently said over the last 2 or 3 years. I want to quote what one of the students said from my school. She's now in high school, and she specifically asked the question, Mr. Jones, and why she had to ask me, maybe she thought I was listening. Mr. Jones, can I ask you a question? If not for George Floyd, would this conversation even be happening? I'll never forget she said that. I was like, yeah, are we recording this? No, we're not. Whew, thank goodness. But she said it, and she said it during one session. She asked it again later, and then she asked it again later on. And may I add, she was not a student of color. Her question was very much what other students say to me in private of all demographics. Can I ask you a question about your people? Can I ask, they always want to know, how do you all, whatever your demographic is, how do you deal with these challenges? So again, I ask, why not? When it's time for these kind of things. And tomorrow is the board meeting. Why not a budget? Why not an office? Why haven't we put the support behind it that we did? I will say this, if all else fails, I still have faith, if nothing else, in my own religion. But are we really going to have a budget tomorrow? Are we really going to have the funding that we need? Are we really going to support the kids, or are we going to allow those loud voices, that intimidation that comes to cause us to not give our kids what it is that they deserve? And that is a voice, and that is to be heard. That's all.
You've got half the board here, so I think that's accountability.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any
I just have a
questions
question about how much is the budget for that event, for the summit?
for that event?
We actually
We
discussed
did it.
this, didn't we? You said like 3,000, perhaps, an occurrence, perhaps. Because you guys were given things.
It was
in kind.
it was work. I think it was under $2,000.
Okay.
Oh, wow. But that was us getting it a lot. We did not pay our speakers. We did not pay.
You had the space?
Everyone volunteered their time. We got the space donated.
That was so nice of them. I'm just saying, future reference, if you don't have support from the board, you might want to consider small business owners, possibly Healing Your Almond as a sponsor. Just throwing that out there. Because there's a way to do things without the board financially saying you can do it. There's a lot of money in Wilmington, like a lot of money.
I have to say, but I have to say, and I forgot this because I didn't write up what I was going to say, because to be honest with you, I didn't know what I should or could say. Many of our advisors, many of our employees, co-workers rather, colleagues, don't know if we're really going to be supported. The comment that was said over and over by advisors are, we really thought this was just going to be a fad. We are so excited that you continue to do this. These are my coworkers. These are my colleagues. They did not know. So again, but when it comes to the budget, you're right. We can do that, but we have to have support all around. I'm speaking in code. I'm speaking in code.
That's the culture. Let's wait until it passes. That's the
like
where
how you said
people
that.
is right now. Like, let's wait. It's gonna pass too. So we need to stay there. We're here for the marathon. So we need to take a baby steps, but making for sure that we're gonna.
So that's why I didn't want to get
Our
into
first baby
it.
step was making sure this worked and that students were engaged and that they wanted to come back. And that was the main thing that happened. So we're looking to have 2 next year. We're looking to have 1 in the fall as a kind of like, all right, let's develop our, we're looking to have 2 next year, 1 in the fall. Let's develop our projects for each school site and kind of some workshops. And then just like all the things I mentioned about what students have been working on, how can they continue that? Who do they need for support? So kind of like a fall summit where they focus on that, and then a spring celebration like we had this time.
It's not a question, but just the observation that one event reached and made a difference for 195 students, that's incredible.
Just reiterate again, how many students were at the November, because that was in March, they attended.
I believe it was 70 students.
We downsized it in order to, yes, we downsized it, it was close to 90.
Okay, and so this time we wanted every single student, because there's no cap on the student equity teams at the school sites, so we wanted every single student who was involved to be able to attend.
Yeah, and I'll just say it just really echoes the need for that type of group, and just the 195 students wanted to participate and got a lot out of participating. That's great.
And the observation I make, which y'all know I am like your biggest cheerleader, is y'all are school level employees doing this on top of your full-time job.
Yes.
And for
Trying to say that in the microphone.
And deserve to be compensated for it. Deserve to be compensated for it. That's what part of the budget should be for.
Absolutely.
Right.
We do way too much stuff for free. As school-based employees, we do way too much stuff for free. As educators.
Fact ever.
how do we sustain?
Thank you, Abby and Brian. It is 6:39. We went a little bit over, but I don't think anyone's complaining about listening to how we're impacting our students. So thank you guys for all your time and being here. I will work with Ms. Walker and Mr. McManus on whether we have another meeting in June, whether we wait until the position's been filled, or whether we come back in another quarter. But emails will be going out. Ideas, keep sending me your way. I am the facilitator right now, just between this work and our board members who are chair of the committee. So if anyone has anything they need to pass along to me to get to higher ups, just let me know.
Other than to say, awesome first job, Chris. Thank you. Stepped into this role big time. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.